Okay. Yeah. Welcome to another episode of Big Conversations by Ordinary People. Today I have you, Audrey, Tumine. What usually happens with my podcast is the guest comes on, so they introduce themselves, and in that introduction, they give a brief of who they are, and that then determines how the conversation will majorly the direction the conversation will take, right? So, but yeah, it focuses mainly on your perspective to life and stories that interest you or things that interest you. I have been stalking you up a little bit. I know you are very passionate in finance and also in goal setting, things I don't really agree with, but that is for the conversation. Please introduce yourself to the audience.
Hi, listeners. My name is Audrey Tumwine. I am a financial advisor and financial literacy trainer. I'm also the founder of Hassan Society. Hassan's is a labor of love, like I like to call it, but it is a community that I have recently created to help working women address the challenges they face as they work towards achieving financial success. It is an annual based it is a my can we start again?
Okay, you can just go again.
Okay, so I do again.
Yeah.
Hi, thank you, Mark, for having me. My name is Audrey Chukmine. I am a financial advisor and financial literacy trainer. I'm also the founder of Hassan Society. Hassan is a community I have founded where I help working women navigate the challenges they face as they work towards achieving financial success. And in this membership based community, I equip them with not only financial knowledge, but also the accountability support they need to thrive. So, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
Well, great. Money. So the people. And do you hear me?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I was not hearing myself, but now I do. So, yeah, I was saying the people who talk about money. So, in the finance world, it's often painted as a man's game. How do you shatter those stereotypes and empower women to claim their financial throne?
Right. Actually, for me, that's where my passion is born. Um, I think that if one day I'm able to, okay, I know you can always edit, but now I'm easing into it. Anyway, to answer your question,
Let's really take it easy.
yeah,
Yeah.
okay. So I get that a lot. I get the question about whether women can actually achieve financial freedom, if they can really be successful. And I think it comes from just society. We have not seen many examples of women really thrive or really build, let's say, multi-billion-dollar or be very rich or very wealthy. And so it is an industry that has been dominated by men. And for me, that's where my passion comes from, to be able to speak and actually watch a financially inclusive environment come to life. And that is where most of my work is based. For example, the society that I have created, I get many questions from men saying, "What about us, the men? You have left us behind." But when we have the conversation of financial inclusion, especially for women, it is not about femininity or pushing the agenda to fight against men. If anything, it is a collective effort where Mark is fighting for his sister, his mother to also thrive, where we're fighting for systems that favor women.
Yeah.
We have incidences where a woman will go to a bank, say for a bank loan, and she will not have it as easy as the man because our systems and the people running them do not feel like a woman can build a very successful business or can have these structures in their business and have the potential to pay back. So that is where we need to do a lot of work so that we get to a point where it is okay for a woman to thrive. It's okay for a woman to be very wealthy and not something that causes us to, ask questions. Yeah.
Okay. So, beyond just numbers, how can women leverage their finances to invest in causes they care about and create ripple effect of an impact?
I think the first step is for women to actually own their power. The fact that we are even having the conversation of how can women do this? How can this not be a man's world? We need to stop playing victim as women. and own our power. And we can do this by educating ourselves, be very financially literate. We need to understand what investment options are there for us so that we can actually grow our money. This is going to help us to have enough to support others, enough to support the communities that we live in, and to actually do things that we are passionate about. We want to come from a position of working at a job simply for a paycheck and be able to go after our passions. And we can only do that if we can actually afford it.
Sure.
If we can afford our lifestyle, we can take care of our loved ones, and then we can move on to do what we love to do.
Well, quite interesting. So I've been following up, say, your Instagram, trying to like read through what you're on about, and also the fact that too many, financial literacy feels like ancient texts, or it's like boring. You're going to that's majorly how people don't like listen to money, or maybe because they're not making a lot of it, right? So how do you, with your infectious energy, make it both empowering and entertaining?
Okay. The first tip for me, because I have
Like your process, and to just make it entertaining and for me to like really catch up on into it.
Yeah. So just a bit of background. Just because I am a financial advisor today does not mean I always knew how to handle my money well.
Okay.
And that was the start of my story. I was very financially literate. I have a profession in finance. I was very educated. I knew what to do, but I still struggled to implement. And that is when I identified the gaps in the information out there. That it is not, first of all, it's not relatable. The teachers that are relaying this information deliver it just as it is written, and that is why people struggle to implement. So what I have done is to really break it down into very digestible information. When I talk about a budget, I will not simply tell you, oh, you need to budget, you need to do this, but I will walk you through the steps, but also show you real life examples of how can this be done. What does it mean? What does a treasury bill mean? I'm sure you've heard of terms like that. Treasury bill, treasury bond. So when I tell you that, this is not complicated. It's simply the government coming to you, Mark, and saying, we have a deficit here and would like to borrow money from you. And just like any borrowed money, it should earn an interest. So the government is borrowing money from you and then giving you an interest for that borrowed money. So that way, I am simplifying it for you. And immediately your brain starts to think of it as an everyday transaction and not something complicated. So that is how I have delivered my message. Actually, recently on Saturday during the goal setting session, I had a friend of mine visit. He works with one of the banks. And at the end of the session, he said, Audrey, I like how you have made this very practical and very simple, because he was there and he's very knowledgeable and he has watched different people speak about finance. He is also a trainer. And he said, this is your niche, like this is your unique selling point, because I could see that women really write down, take notes, ask very practical questions. And so that is how I have been able to do it. It's something I do uniquely, and all of my clients are actually drawn to me because of that. I'm able to simplify very complex terms into everyday situations.
All right. So speaking of complex terms, let's explore, and I'd maybe prefer you expound more on unit trusts and what's the thing you're speaking about? Government bonds? Yeah. Which one? Where should I put my money? Okay, I know some bit of this. I think I have my money in some things, but because my friend Martin has not yet put his money in unit trusts, but he would want to know. Yeah.
So when it comes to any investment that you make, there are very key questions you need to ask. Number one is, what is your purpose for saving the money? Secondly, when do you want the money? For example, before I even get to explain what these different options are, if you're starting to save for, say, your emergencies, so that in case you are sick or your car breaks down, you have some money put away for that, you should not invest in a long-term investment. Because what happens is that you will have money kept there, but you cannot access it, which defies the purpose of the saving. So you need to understand what the purpose is, when you need the money, and what your long-term goal is. So now let's get into the unit trusts. So there are lots of investment options. A unit trust, for example, again, I really like to simplify things. So you have this basket. This is Matt's basket. And then you have eggs, lots of eggs. So you can decide to put all of these eggs in one basket, or you can decide to get different baskets, put different eggs, so that in case a truck hits one basket, you do not lose all of your eggs. That's what happens with a unit trust. So a unit trust is a pool where I put my money, you put your money, Marvin puts his money, and then because we are not licensed or authorized or even skilled enough or knowledgeable enough to know what investment options are there, we trust someone else, who in this case is a fund manager. So you have heard of the UAP, you've heard of Zeno. Those are fund managers.
Someone yesterday was trying to convince me to put my money in the UAP. UTIs.
Okay. So now, because Zeno and UAP have professionals and they are licensed by government to do this, they now get our basket, which has all of our pooled resources, and they do the same thing. Instead of investing it in one thing, they now look for options. They invest some in the treasury bills and bonds that I mentioned, where government borrows from the public. They put some on the stock exchange market, where you're buying shares into different companies that list on the stock exchange market. Then they also do some fixed deposit securities. So this is just a way to guarantee that they have spread the risk, but also because as an individual, you might not have 100 million to invest all at once. They get all our pooled resources. So the three of us raise 100 million. Then we trust UAP or Zeno to do the investing for us. And then they give us a return because they are using our money to multiply. They lend it out. So, for example, the government is borrowing, so we get a return. Sometimes the bank will use the same money to lend to its customers. So that's how you earn a return. So that is the unit trust. So it's just you putting your money somewhere for someone to use, and then they have to give you a return for using those funds.
So what would you advise? What's ideal for say the average Ugandan is low income earner? I don't want to use that thing, but they're not making enough money to like really afford the luxury of saving, right? So
saving isn't a luxury.
It is a luxury, isn't it? I think it's a luxury. Like, because then you can only save if you have more, right? So it becomes a luxury. Not so many people have more money around here. So many people, what they earn is what they eat instantly, right? So yeah, if I have a conversation with my border guy who actually has a very, very, very big cash flow, because he probably spends more money a day than I do, or really interacts with money more than I do in a day. But at the end of the day, he still does not have enough money to save because he has all these bills to take care of. So it doesn't make sense to actually save, let's say, 20K.
Why?
Because then you can use that 20K to like buy things around you, so you don't have to go into the small costs of wherever you're saving it, right? So it becomes a luxury.
Would be the ideal starting point? How much would you save?
To save. So if I have, say, 40% of whatever I'm earning as a spare, but people don't have that, right? I've just told you, people really, what they earn is what they eat. It's what they consume. They actually go into debt about that. So what's ideal for an economy like ours, from your perspective?
Okay. You'll actually be very surprised. First of all, let's start with the percentages. You mentioned 40%. I don't know what informed the 40%.
Of the saving?
Why did you go for 40%?
I listened to some bits of Grant Cardone, and yeah, he chose 40%. So it's a number I went with. Yeah.
Okay. So there is a standard in the finance world where there's a ratio of 50, 30, 20 in terms of percentages, where 50% goes to your needs and bills, the essentials. And then 30% goes to your wants.
To my what?
Your wants.
Which are wants? Like rent?
Your rent is a need.
Okay.
So you see there is needs and there is wants.
Oh yeah. So you're saying that 30% goes to my wants. Wants.
So your wants might be clothing.
Oh, okay.
To spend money on, but you would not die without. And then the 20% goes to savings. So you already see there is a 20%, and then you have the 40%. Meaning these percentages will change from individual to individual.
The case basis.
Because personal finance is very, very personal.
Sure.
Yeah. So when it comes to how much you save, when you wait to have a lot of money, you might actually never save. You will see someone who earns an extremely large salary and yet they live paycheck to paycheck. And yet their minor in terms of positioning in the company, for example, tells you from their little salary they have bought a piece of land or they have small rentals and you wonder how they did that. So when it comes to managing your money, the same way you handle 100,000, you will handle 1 million. But again, I'm not ignorant about the fact that the people who can actually not save anything out of their paycheck. And I like to say that there is a limit to how much you can save, but there's no limit to how much you can earn. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there's always room to earn more money. But when you do not think outside of the box, and also when you do not train yourself, because this is a mindset, we were never taught about money, we were never taught about saving money. The household I grew in, we never had things like an emergency fund. We never had things like this is a retirement account. No, but it's things I have taught myself. So you also need to come from the mindset where I say, I'll save when I have more money, or money is never enough, money does not grow on trees, all of those things we tell ourselves.
Yeah.
And then actually start to save money. So you mentioned he cannot save 20,000 because he will use it. And that's what happens. You wait to save a larger amount of money. But let me tell you, if you compounded that 5,000 you save every day, it would actually amount to something.
Yeah, but the thing then there is if I save small monies, right? So if I save money and it compounds to, let me see. In my mind, I'm using the basis of the guy that helps my friend Okello, who helps maintain this place and keep it safe when we're not here. So if he's to save, say, about 500,000, yeah, a month, and then he buys a bed in 500,000, right? Was that worth it?
In terms of what? How do you judge the worthiness of his purchase or his saving?
Okay, my
Okay, let me ask.
Yeah.
Why do you save money?
To save you on the rainy day, so that it can save you.
So what would happen to Okello if Okello needed a new bed and he did not have the 500,000?
Okay. Here's what I believe, right? Make as much more money and get in as many streams as you can so that when you need a bed, your salary can buy the bed.
Are you paying Okello enough to buy the bed?
What is enough money for salary?
That's my question to you, because when you say earn enough to pay the bed, then how do you determine that? Especially as a job seeker. Like
Okay.
Okello needed the job, came here, his salary cannot pay for the 500,000 bed. What should Okello do? Should he not save for the bed until he gets a salary that pays for the bed?
Okay. So that's where my challenge is. The plan here is to save, right? He has to save to get the bed. But to me, it's almost like the saving then doesn't make sense. Yeah? Because
it will still be depleted anyway.
Yeah. It will still be depleted. Yeah.
No, you raise a very valid point. That's why even when I'm teaching, if you ever attend a class of mine, there are lots of things I have changed. I'm following the principles, but because I have walked this journey, I know that there is a limit to how much you can save. I know that it's possible for your bills to take up 100% of your paycheck and you have nothing to save. I know all of that. And that's why a lot of emphasis has to be put on earning extra money and growing your income. And each one of us, there's something you can do where you are, even at the workplace. There's something you can do to maybe grow up the ranks. And now the goal for you might not be to save money, but rather invest in an extra course that maybe adds to your qualification. But usually when we are setting these goals, we do not look at the long-term objective.
Mm-hmm.
So you're going to put aside 500,000 and be stuck at junior level, say at your job. And yet, if you paid for a professional course, it would probably be maybe 300,000 per month. then by the end of that course you've paid maybe an amount of money, maybe 2 million shillings. But you see that you're now putting these savings away every month for I don't know what, and forgetting this objective that could potentially grow your income by maybe 3 million plus. So we need to understand why we are saving. That's why I asked, what's the purpose of saving? We hear a lot about saving, but we never understand the reasons behind it.
Why do you save?
For me personally, my savings are structured. My savings are structured in a way that meets different goals that I have. For example, you asked about the uni trust. And before I even get into the decision to invest in a uni trust, first of all, let's say I'm saving for my emergency fund. I'll give you an example of that. What I have done for my own emergency fund, a part of it I have put in my bank account, and then a part of it I have put in my uni trust. Why have I split it? In the event that I have, say, a patient or I'm sick, I cannot get money from the uni trust because it takes 2 working days. So what happens in the 2 working days? But this amount that I have in the bank, I can just go to the bank or give someone my ATM card and they will withdraw and pay for the medical bill. So when it comes to saving, for me personally, I take into account things like the purpose for my saving. Sometimes I don't really look at the interest because that's specifically for my investment options. But someone will want an interest on an education plan that they have for their child at the insurance company. That policy is not meant to earn you interest. Insurance prepares you for events like death, for events where maybe you suffer a job loss. It is a protection cover. So when you want to earn interest, you're not thinking about the purpose of why you are even saving this money. Because, for example, the education plan was designed so that in the event that you die, even after just your first payment, they will pay you the sum that they had assured to pay you at the end of the policy. So this goes back to the question of, just like you asked me, why do we save? And this is the question we all need to ask. Why am I saving? And when I put aside this money, will it be able to fulfill that purpose? If you're putting aside 100,000 and you want to, at the end of the year, buy a plot of land, and the plot of land you want is 15 million, realistically, how is that going to happen? Yeah. So, but you'll find that most people, they'll do that saving because we want to do something about our money and want to just be busy doing something. But at the end, we never achieve these goals because we forget. Sometimes you could work on the right goal, but at the wrong time.
So, how do you? So, in my opinion, right? To me, goals are like hope. They're very misleading. Because apart from the fact that I appreciate goals and hope for the same thing, I also don't appreciate them. Hope, like the Christians, is just to fuel their days to get through the next day. Same thing as goals. If I set my mind to buying a car and I save up to buy a car, what happens when I buy the car?
Why do you want to buy that car?
That's the thing, like, but if my goal is to buy the car and I can get that goal, so then what happens next, right?
Okay. So the mindset behind the setting of goals is extremely important. For example, I'll share a bit about my story. When I had to reapply, I had a 9 to 5, and I had to reapply to be given a new contract. And one of the reasons why I did not and why I handed in my resignation was that for me, my vision for my life looked like me being able to take my kids to school, being able to pick them up at 2 p.m. or whatever time they leave without my boss yelling in my ear and asking where I am, asking why I'm late. I wanted that for my life. I wanted to control my hours. So that guided lots of my decisions. So when I was setting goals, in as much as I wanted higher pay, now the direction was that I have to find ways of making money, but in my own routine that I control, that really fulfills me as a person. So when you do not do that, when you do not understand why you even need these things, you're going to work on other people's goals. For example, everyone has land. So Mark says, I think that's the next thing. I want to buy land. I want to have a car because everyone around me is driving. But maybe you even hate to sit in traffic. Maybe you even hate, to have another responsibility and mechanical repairs and all of that. And then you buy this car and you're like, okay, now I have done that. What next? But maybe what would fulfill you was maybe to put money aside and then go on a trip. Maybe put money aside and start something that really start the podcast. Yeah.
Yeah. So to me, that's the other thing, right?
Yeah.
The idea of setting goals puts you in a position where you have to focus so much on the future and then neglect the present. And that is like not so me, right? I am I'm someone that really focuses on the present. Yeah. I am present to people. This is why I actually extensively talk to people, because I like to be present and listen to people. But yeah, even just for my relationships, I am really with the vibe. I don't really care so much about, of course I know that tomorrow has to happen, but then I want to be fully present today and enjoy today. Yeah. So I'll go on a trip and spend, say, 3K. And then tomorrow I will not have transport. It's a bit of some bad financial management skill. Okay, I'm not saying I won't have transport, because I love transport. I am pretty much above that pay grade where I lack the transport. But like, I am okay with spending 3K and then eating posho and beans until I make another 3K to spend in that same way, right? So if I want to, like, say, take a trip, I'll do that. For that, I'll live for that moment. I don't have to, say, save up and be like, you know what, on my 35th birthday, I want to go around the world. So I'm going to, like, put away everything else I have to focus on and just focus on the fact that when I make 35 years old, I have to fly around the world. So I need about maybe 10K to, like, do that, to achieve that. So let me just direct all my money until I make the 10K. I am not that person. I like to live presently. And I feel like setting goals puts you in that bubble where you're so focused on the future that you forget the present.
But a goal does not have to be long term only. We have short term goals and long term goals. But again, it's important that you understand. I'm happy you're saying you like to be in you like to be present.
Yeah.
Like you've been able to know that about yourself. But also why you need to think long term is that I think we go through different seasons of life. For example, maybe you don't have dependents now, but you might have in the next 5 years. So what happens? Are you going to say, guys, let's eat the 3K today and we'll figure out tomorrow? I don't think so. Yeah. Because now there are people who depend on you. So when we are planning for the future, we don't
But they're really, I'm just their custodian, right? I am not supposed to take off my life for the fact that there are people depending on me. And this is the thing I think I was talking to my baby mama in court about. So I think she quoted, then I was still working for Jumia. So she quoted, he's supposed to give me 1.5 million. He works for Jumia per month. I'm like, that doesn't mean anything. I still have to really, really go and have my own life. Yeah. Besides, my money includes my life. I am still growing as you can see, really. Right.
What's your perspective on responsibility, and not just for other people, but
yeah.
I don't know.
So like you are supposed to do what you are supposed to do, but that does not mean you should lose your life, right? Mm-hmm. While at it, because then when you don't have, so what the thing I think our parents have gone wrong at, yeah, is the fact that they sacrificed so much of their life. Then they forgot that they needed that same exposure of just enjoying life for them to be able to parent better, right? Mm-hmm. So they don't have that. Then so we are mixed with a generation of, I don't want to use the word ignorant, but it's what I want to mean. But we are mixed with the generation of emotionally insecure people, right? So if people are emotionally insecure, it's because they've not really been exposed to how the world is now living, right? They've been so stuck up in a bubble that they think things should work in a direction.
Yeah.
Yeah. And doesn't say that they've done their part on being responsible enough. But then one would say there's some irresponsible still to the way they've brought us up, because this is where you'll see a lot of maybe promiscuity amongst people, because people skipped the actual details, right? A lot of divorces for people who got married around COVID, because most of the people, when you look at the people that get divorced, it's because also from their homes, they were living such a hell. And it's not even about how much money they had, but because of how they were brought up, right? So responsibility sometimes is like that. You are a child is you're just a custodian, guide in some way, but the better part of life is, if you want to help someone, then you have to be better than them. So if you want to help the poor, you have to become rich, right? So if you don't, then you can't, even though you really have like a helping heart. So to me, that's the same thing with responsibility. I feel like it's supposed to be treated in the same way. Like, it's one thing to be responsible, right? And it doesn't mean that if I prioritize myself more, I will not take my child to school. Yeah, I will take them to school, but I'm saying maybe I don't have the luxury of giving them 500K pocket money, because I want them to pass through life like any other child would, right? But instead of giving them 500K, I'll give them 50K, then use the 450 on myself. And to some other parent, be like, no, me, I'm sacrificing for my child, and then it fails to make sense to me.
No, I totally agree. I agree. And the fact that I think it comes from just acknowledging that this I have to do, because you have the things you have to do and only you can do. And then, of course, do not forget yourself, because there are many people who will make all of this money and then at the end of the day are resentful because they feel like they took care of everyone else apart from themselves. But the whole purpose of just us planning, because with anything you need to plan, even with you inviting me to that podcast, there was some planning that went behind the scenes.
Sure.
So same with the way we handle anything in life, relationships, money, we have to do some planning. We cannot afford to live in the moment all the time. Find balance, because I believe we can have a 360-degree experience in life, but there has to be some kind of responsibility push on.
True.
And this comes with
Totally agree there. Yeah, totally see that. So, to you, what's take us through goal setting and why it's ideal?
Yeah. So goal setting is just you planning, really, but you're not planning aimlessly. And because of that, you want, in as much as you're trying to find direction and it's like a compass you're following, you need to know what the destination is. And that is what goal setting is. So it's you just looking at a long-term objective first, not just what you feel like doing now, not just what everyone is doing or what's popular now, but what do you see for yourself? What would make you happy? What kind of lifestyle do you want for yourself? What do you see yourself doing every day? What do you envision when it comes to maybe career? How do you want your day to look like? What time do you want to wake up? What do all of those very specific questions. And then you start to now look at what action steps do you want to take? Do you have to take? Not even want to take. For example, let's say one of my goals this year is to do a particular professional course. And my reason for doing it is that I want to be able to work in different countries. Why that's important to me, it aligns with the lifestyle I want for myself. I really love to travel. So I want to be able to set up and work in Nairobi and to be able to work in Dubai. And I'm still traveling, but I'm still enjoying my career and helping people around the world. So getting that certification and that license is extremely important to me. And you realize that by the time I come to the decision to actually pay for it, I have done a lot of thinking. There's a thought process behind that, and I've decided that this is actually it for me for 2024. And then I finance the goal. So when it comes to goal setting, you need to really look at your long-term objective and then now set very specific goals. Where you say, let's say I want to lose weight. Maybe you want to lose weight because you want to feel good, you want your old clothes to fit, you want to, look a certain way, be perceived a certain way. Then you have to get into the specifics of how much weight do I need to lose. what do I need to do? Do I need to check into a gym? What else do I need to do? Watch my portions. Where I struggle, how can I get help? Maybe get an accountability partner. I recently got one. And then we had to step on the scale on day one so that come end of Feb, after
Wait,
that,
an accountability partner. Okay.
an accountability partner is just someone who is in support of what you're trying to achieve. And then they keep checking in on you, but also make sure that you do what you said you're going to do.
Mm-hmm.
They cannot force you to do it, but the fact that you had this conversation with this person and said, this is my intention, this is what I want to achieve, they keep asking you, okay, how far are you? How well are you doing in terms of achieving this goal? So it's important that each one of us has one for whatever. Yeah. For example, if you wanted to grow this podcast by, whatever your metrics are,
Yeah.
it would help if you had someone who you had this conversation with, and they can also recommend, maybe listen to this other podcast, or you need to do this, invite so and so. So just to handhold you really and make sure you do not forget about the goal, because it's easy to forget or even just let the goal go when it gets difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So we need these people to encourage us, people we've shared our vision with, and then they keep reminding us to keep going. So same with our goals, it's important that you have such a person. But back to the goal setting, make sure that the goal is very specific. So the weight you want to lose by 5 kgs, you're going to, you also set a deadline.
Okay.
You want to lose this much weight by December 2024, because you could lose 5 kgs for 2 years. Yeah. Then next, you need to really make.
What happens if the goal is unrealistic?
So that's part of the next
Okay.
steps that I'm going to mention. So it has to be specific. Next, it should be measurable. So you see how I factored in a figure in the whatever you use to measure. So I said I'm going to lose 5 kgs. So the scale has to actually show that I lost those 5 kgs. That's how I'm going to measure my progress. Yeah. If it is, say, buying a piece of land, you have to know how much, or at least estimates, how much does this piece of land cost in this neighborhood that I want. So if it's, say, 200 million, then you should realistically set targets, but also say that in 12 months, I should have saved X amount of money. That's measurable. Next, it has to be achievable, realistic. Yeah.
Yeah.
Back to what I said, you cannot save 100,000 every month and then you want to buy a plot of land of 10 million at the end of the year. It cannot happen. So now that's when you have a conversation with yourself and decide whether that plot of land was very expensive or you just will save this money for more than 1 year. And that's when you'll be able to achieve that goal. Then it also has to be relevant.
Yeah.
Relevant in line with your long-term objective. If I want to stay in Kololo, for example, why am I saving for land in Chira? I hate traffic. I want to live 5 minutes from my workplace. Why do I want to stay in Mukolo?
You are the second female I have interacted with this week that very obsessed with staying in the middle of town. So.
Yeah, it's just convenient. I do not want my child goes to a school that's 5 minutes from home, because that's important to me. I do not want to get my child out of bed at 5 a.m. because they're going to a particular school. No, I do not want to drive for that much time. And then I want to be able to also just conveniently wake up when I want, because I know I just need maybe 30 minutes, get them to school.
Already. Yeah.
So that's important for me. If I didn't have that clearly figured out, I would just go for whatever school would be, with empty vacancies, and just sign up my child and then suffer every morning. And we are all tired, morning, evening. So it's important. For me personally, the areas I would not stay in, because I do not have the patience.
Yeah.
To just sit in the car.
Like which one? Where do you stay now?
I stay in Tinder.
Okay.
So.
Where do you work from?
Tinder.
Where does your child go to school? Okay.
Yeah. So those are very important questions to ask. Is this relevant with what I want to achieve long term? Then the other thing is that it has to have a deadline. Will you meet the deadline every time? No. But that deadline guides you to, sometimes it will also inform your decision to maybe say, okay, this was unrealistic.
Yeah.
And maybe I need to drop the goal, because you also need to be flexible. when it comes to goal setting, it's not set in stone that, if you do not achieve this goal, you're going to die. No. So just putting deadlines is just to help us know what we are working with and in a specific period of time. So that is goal setting, really.
All right. So anyway, I've also, yeah, like I had already told you, going through some of your socials, it means like it looks like your career is already blossoming, right? You've taken off. You are there. You are a thriving financial entrepreneur. Now, in that case, do you want to share your golden nuggets of wisdom for other business female people that are going to listen to your course? What are you doing right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What
And what can other people do, in this case maybe females, to like really navigate the business financial terrain?
Do they have to be in my industry or generally?
What do you want to give?
Any. The principles are the same.
Okay, then let's go general.
So first of all, it's important that you do something you are passionate about. This is it sounds very cliche. We all say this, do something you're passionate about.
Yeah.
But why this is important is that you're going to put in, especially as a business owner, there are times you're going to put in hours without being compensated for that time. Especially in the early stages where your business is just starting, you're figuring out what's happening. There are times we'll do a lot of free work, especially for us who provide a service. So what keeps you going is that passion and that long-term vision that you see for your business. So it's important that you really enjoy whatever you start to do. But also importantly, you need to be able, whatever you're doing should be a solution to something.
Yeah.
Do not blindly set up a business because you saw someone do it and they look like they are making it, they look like they're making a profit. So you also start up the same business. If you are not solving a problem, then you're going to really struggle no matter what you're doing, whether you are an event planner or a baker or even an owner of a school. You should be solving something because that is when you really target a particular client. Next is that you need to understand who your client is and to also understand that not everyone is your client. So yesterday I have an employee and she was telling me I've talked to these people and they said they want this particular information first and they're asking lots of questions. So I told her, based on what we have been able to achieve, the clients we have served, and the problem that we solve, if that client does not understand that and they do not feel like we can solve their problem,
Yep.
then you need to go back to either your messaging, maybe because maybe you're messaging wrong and you're not really communicating with that client, but also that client could be someone else's client and it's not our client. And we might waste valuable time trying to convince someone who isn't our potential client. So it's important that you really profile who the client is for you. Understand what are their struggles, what do they think about, where do they stay, what's important to them, like very specific questions, so that from that goal. And I think what has helped me really do this in a rather short time is that I had those answers before I started, but also not right from the start. I had to do a lot of free work, lots of free consultations, but I was just trying to understand, what does my customer struggle with, what are their challenges, what's the most common thing all of these ladies and gentlemen tell me about? And I kept noting those things down. So when I came up with solutions, they were just hitting on those pain points. So another thing that I would advise is that you build structures. We are not used to that, especially in Uganda, but it's important that we do. Even before you hire people, I have a profile with job descriptions of people I've not even hired. I only have one employee, but I have a job description for maybe my manager, someone in charge of marketing, and all of that. So that when they come on board,
Yeah.
because I'm doing all of these roles now, even before I had my business development person, I was doing those things. And then I kept noting, what do I do? How do I get a client? What conversations do we have? How do I design a business plan? How do I write my proposal to a client? And I kept noting all those little activities. How do I post on Instagram? How do I write the captions so that it's captivating? All of those things. So when you're starting, write down every little activity that goes on. If you're in the product business, take note of the prices, take note of everything you're spending money on, so that you also know how much you have put in your business.
Do you take note of everything you're spending money on?
I do.
You have the money apps, things, what? But I spend money on so many reckless things. I don't think I'll take note of.
Exactly, because it makes you feel guilty and you feel bad for all of those
Yeah.
bad decisions.
True. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's important that you do that. But also, most importantly, and I feel like this has been the most important thing for me, is that I'm always hungry to learn. I never stop learning. And I have heard the world belongs to those who constantly learn, and it's true. So anywhere I know or think I will learn something, I will be there. I'll spend
The first time to see you was at the symposium.
exactly.
Yeah.
And I just went there and I'm like, yeah, I know there's something I will learn from here. I want to understand, how does the law protect me as a business owner? How do I draft these law contracts? And then just to get contacts, like in case I need a lawyer to actually at that symposium, at the point, there's someone who had come to me and they wanted us to partner on something. So at the end of the session, I walked up to one of the lawyers and I talked to them and I told them about the situation, and they advised that we didn't need to have a legally binding relationship. And they said that instead we could just have like a memorandum of understanding and then work on a particular project and then part ways. So there is always something to learn from everyone. Even the gentleman you employ here, there is his perspective on life that could potentially change the way you do your business, the way you do life.
That's true.
So be very hungry to learn, and it will take your business so much farther. Yeah.
So this is what you have been doing.
Yeah.
To be there. So anyway, also you've pursued a path with very few role models, mostly because in the female, right? Most financial advisors are also the ones I've interacted with or the ones I know of, I've read on, or whose content I consume are mostly male. I've rarely seen female ones. So for you, how did you nurture your entrepreneurial vision and overcome self-doubt to turn into a reality?
Okay. I don't think the self-doubt ever goes away. Yeah. I think it's something you have to work with. It's something you have to be able to silence and say, yeah, I feel this fear, but I'm going to do it anyway. For example, for me, my biggest fear was actually public speaking. And I would shake. I feel like my tummy would literally turn and I would be in pain. And yet, for what I wanted to pursue, that was a major thing I needed to be good at.
Yeah.
So, what I did was expose myself severally to situations that just put me out of my comfort zone. And every time someone invited me to speak, I would say yes. I would say yes and then ask about details later and figure things out. And that has helped me. So, even with getting into this industry, like I said, you need to know what the problem is and how you could potentially solve it. So I knew that that was something I needed to add my voice to in the financial industry, something that was not being said, especially in terms of empowering women. And I felt like me being female and knowing what these challenges are, I would be better at addressing them. Most men will do the same thing, but there's a gap that they have not been able to address. And the fact that I understood that not everyone is ready to invest in the stock exchange market, there is financial information that has not been really articulated, and yet it could benefit today's everyday average person. So that is why I got into the industry to start with, but also because there's so many things I had unlearned on my own journey. We spoke about what we learn, what our parents do. So that affects the way we view money, because if you grew up and your parents handled money a particular way, you're going to do exactly the same subconsciously. And for me, that was a struggle for me for a long time. And I saw many people make the same mistakes. And once I was able to figure solutions to that, I was like, yeah, I think this is something I can do, not just for the money. The money is good, But for me, it's really the passion to transform and just have some impact created for other people. And yeah, that's why I do what I do, because I realized that there were gaps in the financial knowledge available, and that is something that I wanted to fill.
Speaking of the stock market, right? I recently came across, I was watching a video of one of my leaders, Anthony Natif. He recently sold off his line.
I've interacted with him.
Yeah, his chain of pharmacies. I went to school with him, but he was way ahead of me in class. But I still interact with him, working on a few things together, the public square and whatnot. Yeah, I'm also planning on having him as a regular on the podcast, but I'll also have him on the podcast in this coming month. Yeah. So we're working out something like that. He's also helping me extensively to curate a conversation I'm going to have with the president. Yeah. Yes. My president. So one of the things in one of the videos I was watching of him on YouTube stated that 40% of Ugandans don't interact with the markets because they have nothing to sell. Do you care to expand more on that?
What kind of market?
So in this case, I think he meant stock markets because for him, I think he had to trade his stuff. Also, we don't have as many companies list, right? Yeah, on the international stock market, like say Kenya, right? I think currently we've only had, in the recent 5 years, we've only had Jumia be on the IPO, I think.
Yeah.
Something like that.
What's the name of the drug company?
Rocket Health.
The one on the Mukono Road? CPI.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Just that. Yeah. So why is that so? Why is that from your perspective, why is it a low tech for businesses in Uganda?
Okay. So first, why we don't even have lots of companies listed is that we've not really been trained to be creative, because even starting a company is a lot of creativity, a lot of creating solutions that solve problems again, which we do not have. We have been trained to go to school, look for a job, work until you retire, maybe have an NSSF fund, and then live happily ever after. So we have very few individuals, the likes of Anthony, who actually decide, when I listen to his story, it's a lot of faith.
Yeah.
To actually start something, start a company, and really see it grow, employ other people, and eventually get to a point where you can actually have people buy into the company. So it comes from that, the lack of creativity, but also we do not have the resources. We do not have, our economy has not been built in a way that it can support such creativity, where you can have a good business plan, business model, and then get funding. Most of our funding is collateral based, which most people do not have. So you cannot afford to leave your job to start a factory or pursue your passion.
But also realize that one of the things we are struggling so much with, and this is something I also realized from a company I bought into. So recently, when I was buying into Tugule, it's an online shopping thing. So the owner, who is also really closely, almost like my best friend, was very hesitant to letting shares go, right? Like we've kept about it, like, bro, I have this much amount of exposure. I'm going to put us in boardrooms about this, but I much as I want to see you happy, I want to have some stake onto this. And right now, you cannot afford to pay me a salary. So here's the thing: give me a small piece of the pie, and then that will. So be like, no, what? Like it is only as recent that he has come to terms with the fact that that's maybe the only way out. But then I feel like it's something Ugandans struggle a lot with. They like to be majority owners for really tiny things, yet you could have otherwise been what? Even if you own like 3% of a multi-million-dollar company, you'd still be richer than someone who owns 100% of a shillings company, right? Yeah.
Yeah. It goes back to just honestly what we are used to seeing. We've grown up seeing the neighbor have their retail shop for 10, 20 years. You might even go back to your neighborhood and they still own the same retail shop. We've not seen them grow or say, okay, I got a business partner and now we have gone into a wholesale shop. No. It does not happen. Even when people are talking about their businesses, they say, make a business, make a side hustle. So mentally, it has not even come out of us, the business owners, to think of it ever being jointly owned.
Yeah.
But also, we do not have that kind of big vision for our businesses. Want to be able to afford our bills.
But is this something you're telling people?
Yeah.
Okay.
I am. I always say that I want my company to one day be listed on the stock exchange market. And that is why I emphasize structures. Because when you operate your business with that mindset, you then think about, if one day I ask someone to come and buy into my company, would they?
Yeah.
It means you have to prepare it for that sale eventually. So the way you run it, the way you do things is going to influence that.
Mhm.
But of course, we have not been taught. Even me, I have had a lot of learning to do from people outside of Uganda. And then I'm like, okay, so you can actually ask Anthony and asked him, what she sold was a pharmaceutical company with products. Someone can see that. You walk into the pharmacy, you buy a syrup, you walk out. So there's something you're really exchanging. And I asked him, for my financial literacy company, how can I do that? And he said, you just need to sell, to have a product to sell. So this same thing, we do not think services are also products, but whatever you can exchange for money is a product. Same with any kind of business. So you have to do it in a very good way, so that one day, should you decide to have more capital, because really selling a company or even asking someone to get shares is you adding money into your company.
That's true.
So they have to be attracted to add that money into your company, and you only do that by doing a good job. But also, why we do not really interact with such environment, the stock exchange market, we think it's for a particular set of people. We think we need a lot of money, but also we do not understand what goes on there. That's why even now, with all of the enlightenment, most people will invest in a unit trust. But you can also go and get that information yourself, because it's there. The Capital Markets Authority really informs you, and it's free information. And you can ask, how do I know a good company to invest in? How does this even work? What do you mean by a company listed on the stock exchange market? And then
What do you mean by that?
By the listing?
Yeah. What does that heavily mean? I definitely know, but yeah.
So the term listing on the market is just the same as, let's say there's a market day in Nadia Estate, and then they invite vendors. So now Nadia Estate is the Capital Markets Authority, or the stock exchange market, the regulatory authority.
The regulatory,
Yeah. So the heads of Nadia Estate say, if you have a product that you're selling and it meets these standards, it's clean, it's not harmful to people's consumption. So you see they're listing all of those things that have to be met. Then we invite you to come to Nale Estate on Friday and showcase your products.
Yep.
So that our community can come and buy whatever they're interested in. So same thing, listing on the stock exchange market is just this company deciding that we have got to a level where maybe we are struggling a bit with our operations and we could use extra capital. So out of the 100 shares that we have, we can let some people buy the 10 off, the 10%, and then inject more money into the business. So they come to the stock exchange market and they tell you each share is going to go for maybe 2,000 shillings. Yeah. And then you can buy, even as an individual, by the way, you can buy into, say, roofings and become a shareholder. And then roofings each month or whatever period they declare will give you an interest. The only difference is that where they suffer losses, you also suffer a loss, because you're now the owner, part of the ownership. Where there's a profit, you earn a profit. So it's as simple as that.
So what does it mean for people who bought shares in, say, Airtel?
So same thing. So what happens is that there's an account, say a bank account, because that is how they're going to make your payments. So at the end of every period, whether they declare an interest or, profit or loss, they then give you a dividends. They call them dividends, but it's just interest or whatever returns have come from your investment, it's paid into your account. And then for the people who bought whatever company it is, Airtel inclusive, you're able to now, you should follow up on the performance. Just like when you go to the bank, there are those display charts.
Yeah.
But I'm sure we never look at them. So they show for 2022, 2023, this is how we performed. And if you had, say, a fixed deposit or any kind of account that earns interest, that informs you so that in case the bank is telling you, no, there's no interest because you made a loss, those records show, and then you're able to know what you're entitled to.
So, right. Thank you for that. So beyond certainty, right? How do you embrace to invest in? How do you embrace investing in? Should I say investing? How do you embrace the risk of no? So yesterday I wrote a blog because it's the headline is Beyond Certainty: Embracing Risk in Uncharted Investments, right? So it comes from the fact that I'm trying to invest in a pop and soul R&B artist. They really sing so well. Isabel Eg. Here in Uganda, they call Isabel Eg. I'll probably play for you the music when you leave, right? But so the project needs big money for it to spur up. And I know for a fact, because she's singing really, really good music, it's a challenge for this market somehow. And also because this market has had its challenges on, say, things like internet penetration to like upstreams, and there's a big disconnect between the audiences here and then the ones, say, in Europe or in the States where there's so many numbers, right? So that shows that there's already existing risk. But I'm still willing to invest because the talent and the story looks promising, right? So, from your perspective, when an investment doesn't make profit based returns, right? When now, say in this case, I want to invest in an artist that sings so well because I also want to see them on a world stage someday and be like, you know what, this is
You contributed
to this, and it's amazing. But then I have not cracked on how I'll probably get back my money, and I'm going to spend a lot of money on the project because it takes a lot of marketing and whatnot, and of course to like do so much goes into really making an artist, right? So that such uncharted investments, what's your say on them?
Is there any form of agreement? Nothing.
Yeah. So how would you want us to put the argument?
Okay, because what happens at the point where she's on the world stage? Have you structured for a conversation to happen then?
No. So right now we are billing everything, right? So if it works, there's a big possibility I'll be paid back, and maybe with interest and things like that. But in the case that it doesn't work, right? Do you feel like it's worth an investment to just invest in a dream?
Definitely. Definitely. Because if you believe in something, then I would, of course, with caution, exercise caution, do your research. But definitely, because we've seen so many things, big things come out of something that started as a dream, something that no one understood, and then it pays off. But why I encourage you to have some of those conversations written down in forms of contracts and agreements is that it becomes an easier conversation to have later when the dream becomes a big reality. And if you have not taken care of that, then it's going to be very difficult because the artist might feel like they have earned everything that they have. Maybe they even don't remember whatever investment you made. So just have that written down. It does not have it shouldn't be maybe very complicated, but it should definitely have something.
Right. So anyway, we all have financial anxieties, right? So how do you handle those butterflies in your stomach and push through to make empowered money decisions?
Yeah. For me personally, it helps that I have a safety net.
Your husband is rich.
That's my safety net.
I don't know. I thought that's what you're going to say.
No. for me, even with whatever, I didn't, of course, have it from the start, but there is an amount of money which mentally, even in my bank account, I cannot play with. And that empowers me that outside of that threshold, I have a bit more freedom to do the things that I love. So it's important that I do not like the feeling of anxiety. Why I don't? Because growing up, I saw how that affected the adults around me. I know how their moods changed when they were broke. I know how happy they got when they had money. And I did not like that inconsistency. So for me as a person, because I have understood my relationship with money, I make sure that I have that safety net, money that I always have, and then I can play outside of that.
All right.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's move into like a fun fact. What's the craziest money myth you've had to debunk in your life? Money doesn't grow on trees? It clearly doesn't.
I think for me, so why I love to save money, but my approach to saving has changed from holding on to it like my life depends on it. And then I have kind of let it go because now I believe that there is a lot of money out there for me to make. So that myth for me has just, I don't have a particular one, but I've just shifted my mind from scarcity and then empowered myself to believe that I can make money, a lot of money. And since I have done that, I've actually seen money coming into my account because when you're operating from a scarcity mindset, it affects the way you show up, the way you negotiate in your business. You will take peanuts because you feel like you're not worth a lot of money.
Yeah.
So I'm able to communicate my rates with confidence and be confident that the client will get back to me and pay for it. So that's in terms of what I believed about money, because myths are really just stories we believe that we've not proven to be true. So it's that for me. Growing up, I always thought there was never enough money. Actually, that's the one. There's never enough money. And that's what I have struggled to discard and just pick up new beliefs. Yeah. Because there's so much money. Bank of Uganda prints money every single day.
Too much money ain't enough money.
Yeah. So that's yours.
Yes, that's mine. But I also steal it from a song from my favorite rapper. So yeah, it says too much money and enough money. I don't know what proceeds next, but I remember the line was really nice. So, and I listened to that when I was still very, very young. I think I was in my age too. So it was a popular hip hop song. So it kept running in my head of too much money ain't really enough money. And I used to complain with my father on how much pocket money he would give me, right? So he'd give me like 50,000. So every week you have to like remove like 5,000 at the college. And other kids had about maybe 300 or 250. So my dad echoed it again to me in Uganda that even if I gave you 250, you'd need 500 the next time.
Yeah.
So just manage out to use the 50,000 and you'll be fine because there's never going to be a time where I give you enough money. You'll never appreciate it. So yeah, that came in.
Yeah.
So what is that one actionable step you can give me today to boost my financial confidence and well-being?
What would you say your biggest challenge is?
It's about managing money, but then to me, I don't look at it as challenge, right? I am always looking out to make more money. I don't believe in like I told you, I really live in the present day. So rather than thinking about, oh my god, I'm spending 3K on this vacation, I'd rather then think, where am I going to get more extra money for the next month?
Yeah.
Yeah. So but I get the argument that you need to save for the money to save you, but I never really worry about it. I don't have the anxiety for it.
No, it's a good thing because why that mindset is good. For many people, they are held hostage by money and all of these things. People actually fear, like the fear of running out of money is a real one. And it's very crippling. So if you have been able to get over that, that's great. And that should benefit many people. So there's someone I really like and who I look up to as one of my mentors, Ramit. He talks about money as a financial advisor, and he says that you need to stop worrying about the cost of the coffee, like a coffee, and think about how you can afford the things that you actually care about. So many times we are worried about, say a coffee is 10,000. Our minds are really filled with 10,000 shilling problems that we never think about how to earn the 10 million. So that's why I say that if you've been able to overcome that, and you feel like, because being in the present means that you've kind of that control go of controlling everything that happens, which is great. But now that should be empowered with the thought of, okay, now that I've been able to discard these limitations and I know I shouldn't worry about my day-to-day living, how can I now do better? Because that same mindset can be used to achieve so much more. And if you do not take advantage of it, you could lose it and then get to a point where you now start to panic and like, oh my God, I wasted 5 years and I did not save money. So now start to think of the big problems that you can solve to get you that big money.
Yeah.
So that you don't have to worry about the little everyday expenses. Because many people are stuck here where they worry about the little everyday expenses. And yet that's a cycle that you cannot get out of if you're constantly worrying about that. So if we can all get to a point where now this is no longer an issue and now we are thinking about the bigger things, then that would be very empowering. Wouldn't be saying, oh, I'm struggling to save, or I saved this money and I bought a bed and it was entirely wiped out. It means we're still worrying about the small problems and limiting ourselves to just taking care of our bills and surviving, and yet we can do so much more.
All right. Right. That makes a lot of sense. Oh, the other challenge is women. They take a lot of my money. So how do I go about that?
That one is a personal thing that I don't know why they take the money. That's a decision. I don't know the reason. But again, it being a problem could be that your budget is getting overstretched.
Yes.
Because
And I hope they're listening in this podcast to know that they're overstretching my budget with ridiculous needs. But okay.
so every time you feel like your budget is overstretched, it means that there is a limit on your income. And I say this over and over again because we like to really stretch out the shilling and make it do so many things without really thinking about how we can keep adding into that income basket.
Mhm.
So if there are lots of girls taking your money, then you need to work harder. You need to get extra income
The
streams.
solution is to get extra income. But then if I get extra income, it means that there'll be more girls to take the money.
I feel like you need to remember what you said about your dad saying, even if I get you to 50,000, you'd still say it's not enough. So that's what happens. You get more money, you want more girls. So make more money, keep your 2 girls who are taking your money,
Okay.
and then you'll have enough.
I'll take that. What do you think about China
Oh. In terms
as a
of
financial superpower? So anyway, with like China's economic might, yeah, and Uganda's entrepreneurial spirit, do you feel like that's a country we really need to stay in bed with? But yes, goes back to the question: what do you think about China in terms of financial strength now?
I think, well, best on our whole system where we are not very supported, because that is the truth.
Yeah.
Our banking system, our financial system, our business laws, they all do not really support today's person. For example, UIA, the Investment Authority, will give tax holidays to foreign investors, but they will not give you the same tax holiday.
True.
It means that if you're not being helped by our government and someone can potentially help, then we need that ally. We need that relationship. So for China, they are very willing to help, and if someone can tap into that, then good for them, definitely.
So China is really, really based on like the state-driven infrastructures like Kigali, right? Where the state puts up the most important stuff. The arena is belongs to the state. Anything that is as it's. But then Uganda does the grassroots. wealth, where they focus on. Yeah, all Museveni's schemes have been about that, going back to the grassroots and empowering someone with money. No, it's someone in the village to like have money.
Is that fairly done?
So even if it was fairly done, yeah,
I think it goes back to the conversation.
the grassroots financial inclusivity, right? Do you feel like it's a working model for Uganda?
I don't think it is because it's like the story we've had. You can either teach me to fish or give me a fish. So we are giving people fish, which to start with they need because you're giving them a head start. But if you have still not equipped them with the knowledge to manage what you have given them, then they'll constantly look out for those handouts.
Yeah.
But also, if you're struggling with problems like unemployment for people straight out of school,
Yeah.
and then we are giving coffee seeds to the people in the village who, yes, they need the help, then how have we empowered the ones who are giving the coffee seedlings to get to a point where they can employ the graduate who has no job?
So, okay, for specifically that, because again, I have been consulting heavily. I am consulting for the, I'm not have been, I am heavily consulting for the Coffee Investment Consortium. And I believe they really do have, the consortium has a working model, right? So for it, it's a value chain kind of thing, right? Instead of, so what they're doing is to make sure they buy the coffee from that farmer at a bigger price. Yeah. Or, in fact, empower that farmer enough to use their coffee to maybe add value to it. Maybe say they're putting up a plant where the coffee can be turned into something else. So the farmer then stands a chance to have their coffee compete on a world market. And also it's like a diverse market. So yeah, I feel like if the model is not being fought by people like Native, it can definitely work. It can work.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's something. In my opinion, I feel like we just need to see it through because I've seen the plan start up, and it's going to be really good progress. Yeah. So yeah, jumping away from that is so access to finance. Yeah, is one of the biggest challenges Ugandans face, even though we are hugely called a big entrepreneurial city. People start up. There's a guy starting up a Rolex joint somewhere. There's another guy selling vinyewa. Like someone is always doing something, right? They have the spirit in them, but they still don't have enough money to see their companies through for the second birthday. What's the solution to money? Why don't we have so many people? Why don't we have like a Silicon Valley in your opinion to invest in people or startups here and to just really readily give people money to see? Why don't we have so many people investing in people's dreams?
There could be, I don't even think they are aware of those dreams that exist. People have been, because you cannot make an investment in something you do not know about. So, what we know about is that you get into a unit trust, you fix your money, especially for the people who have the money. But that's also a very small percentage. So, the economy generally is poor.
Yeah.
So, we do not have enough people able and willing to invest in these dreams and passions and businesses. So, what would help would be our banking system. This has to be structured in a way that it helps the ordinary Ugandan, the one with no collateral, the one who's just starting up, the Rolex man who does not have anything to his name apart from his stand. How does the bank help him? How does the bank also address his illiteracy challenges? Because the bank will give him a long list of requirements he cannot even read. He cannot he doesn't understand the requirements. He does not know things like let's look at your cash flows, all of these things the bank looks at. Because typically the bank wants you to show that you can pay for this loan or whatever money they advance to you. But when you're starting out, you actually don't have those figures. You don't even know how it will perform. So we need to have that kind of, maybe banks need to have some kind of special insurance to protect them against that risk, so that they can now start to venture into, especially the creative businesses and people with very small businesses that do not have capital of even 5 million, because That's most businesses in Uganda. So if they had that kind of protection, because even for them it's a business, so if they had that kind of protection, especially in the form of insurance, they would be able to venture into lending and extending funds to such people.
Good. So are there like models you have learned, read about, or witnessed work, say, in other countries that you feel like they would work here?
Yeah.
Do you care to like expound on them?
For example, the Islamic banking. So what happens is that you go to them with a great idea, and if they buy into it, they give you the funds, and instead of you paying interest, you now profit share. So when your business makes profit, they buy into your company to say. So they when they give you that money, they become shareholders, they own a stake in your company, and then depending on how it performs, if it makes a loss, they make a loss. It makes a profit, you share this profit. So I think that would be a good model. I'm actually excited for it to start here.
Yeah, I've heard it's to start, right?
Yeah.
I read somewhere they were launching it.
Yeah. So I think that would be a good one.
So, is financial inclusivity enough? How can it be woven into broader development agendas focused on education, healthcare, and environment sustainability for truly holistic progress?
Okay. That will start with the policies. So it has to be taken care of from the stage of our policy formulation. So that instead of making noise in parliament about walk to work or who did that, let's focus on the important things. For example, when we look at the financial education that we have, we don't even have that really structured. Most things we learn on our own. And now, of course, with things like unit trusts coming in and insurance companies wanting to make money, they have tried to inform people. But we need that, first of all, to be incorporated in our education system. Can we have a particular lesson or subject dedicated to that, and then have children do that from when they join P1 and start to be taught about simple principles of money management from the university, so that as individuals we are empowered? Because when you do that, then that's the first thing you do, is that you equip people with knowledge, and then we get into the structures and policies and laws. They should be designed to actually help. That's why we'll have banks come up with packages to help people who are not in position to get money against their assets in the law, because even these banks are regulated by the Bank of Uganda and the government. So apart from policy formulation, we also need to get representation specifically for those areas. We have representation for different people, we have for workers, but now can we have someone who really focuses on financial inclusion, not just for women, but even for men, even for the youth? The people who really need to be represented, so that their interests are always aired in those environments where decisions are made. Yeah, that would be a good start.
Interesting. So, for you, what experiences of firsthand shaped your view on Uganda's economy, and what do you make of it? Do you feel like it's a promising economy? Do you feel like it's a struggling economy? Do you feel like people can prosper here freely? So, when you look at multi-millionaires, right? The ones who are my friends, the ones firsthand I have on my phone, the likes of Natif, they have an education from, say, Manchester, right? Hilary Bamlinda, a master's again from the UK. Chivuka. And yeah, guys, I'm listing millionaires. Please don't shoot them down. But also, they don't have a problem with, because they've made the money really, really in very direct, honestly, steps. So we seem to also have such a big disconnect between the people who are staying in Miyenga with money and the guys staying in Chitukutu and just trying to survive. What have you made of this economy, and what other things you feel like need to be done to be shaped, for it to be shaped?
I think Uganda is a very promising economy, and we've seen even now life stories. You've seen someone go to do chayo and they come back after struggling for so many years, and all they can do is put up a house, and then they have to go back to make more money to come and finish it through very hard labor. And yet we have seen also someone in Uganda become a millionaire overnight. You see them today, you meet them tomorrow, and they're driving a very expensive car. So it's a very promising economy. And
But that could be a result of corruption, right?
it's
But also, I have listened to Andrew Minder giving a case for corruption, and I am not so far away from his argument of, you see, because corruption happens literally everywhere in the world, right? It's not only subject to Uganda and Africa, but even the biggest states. It's just how people are financially literate to understand how to make their money work for them, which maybe could be the problem with Uganda. Yeah.
the conversation on corruption is a
Big.
different.
True. I agree. I agree.
But yeah, Uganda is one. I think because we have not really explored all of the opportunities. If you are able to do that, you can make a lot of money in Uganda, because the mindset is that we live within a particular streamlined framework. And if you're able to get outside of it, there is lots of opportunities. What you call corruption could be someone that linked, you see how you have your contacts? That is a wealth of resources. And you becoming rich overnight could look like an investor coming to you and saying, I need to meet the president.
True.
And then you're like, okay, let me call this person because maybe he's PA. And I take you to the president, but that's going to cost you. I need $100,000. If you do not want it, it's fine. You can go look for the president. So creative, and that kind of creativity might not be easy in other places because people are more enlightened. People do not have that kind of fertile, unexplored land that they can really dig into, which we have here. So if you can really think creatively, if you can see the opportunity, even at work, I don't see many people try to really understand what they can do to go through the ranks. Sometimes you don't even need to play that shit politics. It's understanding what's not being done at the association. Draft your business plan, draft your proposal, take it to management. Do not share all of your concepts and then say, I want to be hired as a consultant for this. And you will get lots of money. So Uganda is very promising. There are lots of opportunities for us to benefit from.
Yeah.
But there are lots of things still that are challenges where, for me, things like taxation, it's very, very unfair. I feel like we do not need to pay those very high percentages in terms of taxes, especially in an economy where we're not being supported. We could lower them, make them affordable so that more people can actually pay, because it's only a small percentage of people that actually pay taxes. Most people evade. So if they were made reasonable and then we have more people paying.
But do you feel like business owners really understand the taxing system?
No.
Okay.
Because the authorities have not come out to educate us. They feel very entitled to our money. Yeah. So they'll just beg you. Even when you go to their offices, the attitude is very hostile. You will not get someone to really sit down and explain to you. You cannot really object against a tax unless you know someone. So those are things that need to be worked on, because at tax, we are working as a partnership as the taxpayers and the government. This is money we have worked very hard for. So in this partnership, there's no entitlement. It's an agreement. So if you can also educate me, help me understand how you come up with these figures, and also be very open about how you use these taxes, then we shall really pay willingly. So there's work that needs to be done, and this will also empower people, especially business owners, to also grow. And then that answers that question of how can we thrive in Uganda? You can, but we need support. In as much as we are doing all of this work on our own, we need support from the stakeholders.
All right. So we're going to jump into a little bit of your personal journey. So did Audrey always envision a career in finance? What unexpected twists and turns led you down this path of finance, and what pivotal moments shaped your professional trajectory?
That's a good one. No, I did not envision this journey. I did not ever think I would be a financial advisor. Never. If you had told me 5 years ago, I would have probably laughed. Actually, when I quit my job, I was sure I was going to do event planning.
Yeah, you speak and look like someone in events planning. That's so true.
I had a business name registered. I had set up a location. I was getting into like the bridal business. So at that location, I had like an Airbnb setting where they would stay the night before the wedding. I had everything figured out. But I always had this as a passion and I helped lots of people, but I never saw myself earn from it. It's something I did for free and people acted on my advice. I was very well informed. I knew about the stock exchange market and all of the detail at 15, and I was very good at it. So fast forward, I get my job at 22 at a very good government agency and I started to work. But after about 4 years, I had a baby on the way, and then I started to really panic because despite me earning so much money, I had no savings, I had no assets.
Yeah.
And for me, my pivotal moment was one day when I walked into a baby store to buy things for my baby, and almost all the little savings I had were wiped out by that transaction. And I remember going back to the car and sitting for about 30 minutes. But the most, it was like the loudest thought I ever had.
Mm-hmm.
And I asked myself, how would I feel if my child ever asked me for anything and I could not afford it? And not because I wasn't working, but because I was being irresponsible with my money. And that's when my life changed. I went back to work. A friend of mine had told me about the circle at work, and I kept thinking, why do I need a circle? I can save this money myself? So the next day I signed up for the circle to deduct money off of my account. And that's when I started to intentionally save money. And I started to learn. Previously, I would hear about invest. I knew these things, like I said.
Yeah.
And then I would think of all of the excuses. I would say, what if I invest my money in a long term, say 5-year plan, and then we have war after elections? I would always think of excuses. So my excuses could not work anymore because now there was someone I needed to take care of. There is someone I needed to be responsible for. But also, after a while, I started to see people around me retire and have nothing. And yet they had had a very good career. So I started to ask questions like, how does this happen? Because once you have not seen someone live it, you might think it's just stories, it's just someone telling you, be responsible with your finances.
Mm-hmm.
So I started to have conversations with them. And then over time, I started to meet people like relatives of mine who would say, this year I'm going to go and get my payment from this thing that you advised me to do. And it's things I was just talking about and just telling them good practices. So because I had made my own mistakes and now started to work on them, I started to budget.
Yeah.
Something that I really did not like because it made me feel bad about my bad spending habits. So I started to do that. I started to save very consistently. And then I started to see money in my account. I started to invest. I started to see opportunities and be able to afford them because I had the money to actually invest in them. And so now, fast forward to when I leave my job ready to do event planning. So I went to this event and they asked us to introduce ourselves. So I'm like, But before that, the organizer of the event, we just talked a bit. And then for some reason, she called me and we got into a deep conversation. She was telling me about the event and then telling me, but I'm organizing this event, but I'm really struggling. One of my biggest struggles is debt. So we got into that conversation and I gave her all these action points. You can do this, you can do that. I looked at her income, I looked at how much she was spending. So I share information freely because I did that a lot for my friends, my workmates. I would advise people on how to ask for a raise. But I just, because I never saw anyone start a practice to become a financial advisor. I never saw that. So, so at this event, we're introducing ourselves and say, "Oh, I'm Audrey. I have this company. We do event planning." And then she gets the microphone and says, "Audrey is also a personal finance coach." I had never heard of that. And I'm like, "Yeah, I help people. I can advise you on how to manage your finances better." And I was like, "Oh my God, wow, what? Read us your contact." So I read it out. And then I sit and the event goes on. So during the week that followed, I get people actually asking, calling in and asking for us to meet, asking for me to help look over their budgets. And that is how it started. But still, as focused on my event planning, I was like, yeah, I can just do this. Until one time, someone asked to schedule a call and then asked me, how much do you charge for a consultation? So I told them, I'm busy right now, but let me get back to you. So I get off the call and then I call this lady who was organizing the event. And I tell her, I know someone called me and they want to pay for a consultation because they assumed I charged for it. So she tells me, tell them 100,000. Huh. So I call back and I tell them 50,000. And then they immediately pay for it. And it was a virtual call. So I do that call and I'm giving them all of these things. So I recorded that call. It was a Zoom meeting. So I recorded that call. Then after, like 2 days later, I decided to watch it. And it was a serious call. I'm like, wow. So I showed it, I sent it to my mom. So my mom is this person who will, even if you tell her I want to fly and go to like space and build a ship, she'll tell you, yeah, you can do it.
You can do it. This is a yes person with the energy, yeah.
So she's like, but you've always been good at that. Actually, when she would introduce me to her friends, for her, she would always say that she should just say, she's very good with finance, even at my job. Because I'll do that, I'll do business analysis, things like that. So I sent it to her. She's like, this is really good. You know, you can train people. So I made note of that. Like, wait, I can actually train people. And then that is how it started. So this lady eventually becomes my friend and then says, okay, so we had been talking and I'm telling her about what I'm studying. I started to do lots of courses in line with that as a practice. So she's like, okay, you've studied all of these things and you have all of this knowledge. How are you going to make money from it? Because first she really looks at the income. So I told her, I do not know, I've not thought that far. I enjoy this and I just want to talk to people. And I used to do that. So she told me start posting on Instagram, which is a lot of work. But I started to share things because I would have like free resources, free budget templates, free things. I would just say, if you want this, DM me, I'll send. And I would do that. So one time she tells me, I want you to organize a masterclass. It's going to be 1 month. And then I want you to charge for it. So she tells me, design the program, design the poster you're going to put out, and send it to me.
Yeah.
So I do that. I send it to her. She edits it, makes it look very nice. Now it comes to the price. I ask her, how much should I charge? She tells me 250,000. Because you see, with event planning, I could easily charge this money. Because I've seen people charge for it. And the passion for me from that event planning came from my own wedding. I saw how much money we spent for things we could do, things that were not even done well. I was like, yeah, I can actually do that. And I actually did. About 5 weddings. Yeah, so it was a serious thing.
Isn't this something you can still do as a side gig, though?
About it.
Okay. But you're still mastering the finance.
I want to be really, remember what I said, like you have to really be good at something. Yeah. I feel like I'm not given 100% here. Yeah. And I can still up that percentage and earn so much more. But yeah, definitely I have thought about it. So she tells me charge to 50,000. And then she says, I'm going to be the first person to sign up. And she sent me to 50,000. And then she says, go through your contacts and send this poster to maybe 5
people. Yeah.
So 5 people. Some friend of mine, Grace, also pays to 50,000. I'm like, okay. So eventually about 5 people paid. But because I think I still do not believe in this. I asked like my sisters-in-law, my sisters to all join in so that I had the numbers, and that was the start. That was the start. And then she asked why I said you should always document. She asked me to document everything, document every class, what I shared, the topics, and usually build a course. And that's what I did. So from that, through word of mouth and through the experience that I built over time, I started my practice.
Interesting.
Sorry. I wasn't always good at handling my money. And that is why, for me, I speak from my own experience and from all of the mistakes I've had to correct. And I know exactly what to address when someone books even their first consultation with me, because I know what the common problems are. I know what the solutions are because I have walked that journey. I did not help from book knowledge only.
Yeah.
I have that matching experience that I have lived through as an individual.
So, as a woman in a traditionally male dominated field, what challenges have you faced?
We are not taken seriously sometimes. Yeah, we're not taken seriously sometimes. And many people, when a man is doing something, okay, that's another point. The first is that we're not taken seriously because there are not so many women do it. But also, as women, we sell ourselves short. A man will think about this brilliant idea that he has, even if he just made like a matchbox, he will sing about it like it's the greatest invention. So that is something that we also need to do, because when you're able to confidently say what you're bringing to the table and what your skills are, you'll make that sale without, a lot of effort. But when you don't understand that value, then you get into scenarios like myself where you're doing a lot of free work. I did so much free work. Although, of course, the experience has paid off and I've been able to show myself as an expert.
Yeah.
But I could have earned from it way before. So that is one challenge I have found, that we do not really understand our value. And then, of course, we do not have many examples that have gone before us. So there are so many fasts for us. We make so many mistakes just trying to figure out how to go about things. And yeah, so we kind of take longer to achieve something than the male counterpart.
So, what are your personal money quirks or irrational fears when it comes to finances?
Because I really like to plan, I I just do not like to be in a situation where I'm uncertain about money. For example, I have shared this a lot, that even when I'm choosing my investments, I make sure that it is a kind of investment where I'm able to track it, be it on their website or get notifications on my phone. So for me, a fear is that maybe that money will just disappear. Like in my mind, there is that fear because I have seen people go completely to nothing after having so much money. So this also informs the way I handle my money, that I still want to have some form of control, even when I invest, where I bank, what I invested in case in terms of an opportunity. So yeah, that's a big fear for me.
All right. What legacy? This is like the last question, unless you have like questions for me. Usually, my guests also get a chance to like ask. But yeah, the last question to me is, what legacy are you trying to leave behind?
I want to be remembered. So I have achieved one of them. I remember a year ago, about a year ago or less, I was in Johannesburg and I was on a panel, and they asked what I wanted to be remembered for 5 years from then. And I told them that I wanted to be remembered as the financial expert who made sure that quality financial services were not only accessible but affordable, which I have been able to do with Hudson Society. So the idea that informed that was that every time I got a consulting client, and I was charging them maybe 150,000, 200,000 for an hour,
Yeah.
they would struggle to make their next appointment because it wasn't affordable for them. So I thought of a way where that 1 hour I would serve more people and make it affordable for them. And so I thought of this solution where in this community it's 350,000 only, and I'm able to have a weekly strategy call with them I'm able to share different resources with them to help them budget, save, invest. I'm able to provide in the community an accountability space. So through this, I've been able to help people consistently work on their money all year long. So that is something I'm very, very proud of. And the other thing that I want to be remembered for is that if I'm able to help women to be very confident in their money decisions, I would have done a very good job to empower them to the point where they can confidently own commercial property, confidently start up a business that is very big, employs very many people, and one day can list on the stock exchange market that we have talked about. If I'm able to empower them to choose to be in a position where they do not work for a paycheck and instead actually stay at a job because they love it and not because they are doing badly financially or they cannot afford to leave, then I would have done a very good job. So that is what I want to be remembered for.
Nice. I feel like, yeah, that's worth it. So, anyway, on money, yeah, it's really a complex relationship between it and our emotions, right? So, how it, of course, influences our anxieties, desires, sense of self worth. Do you feel like, can we cultivate a healthy relationship with money that's free from its manipulative grip?
Yeah, we definitely can.
So, that comes in a way that, look at like rich people, right? Didi, the more money you have, the more you're into some weird arrangements of life. Your desires are extremely unconventional, right? Um, Clearly, you will have, yeah. I don't want to attack people's sexualities, but
But we
very
also
many.
have good examples like Zuckerberg, who will wear like a $10 shirt despite him being extremely wealthy.
But that's first of all, his shirt is not $10, but also, also, Zuckerberg is making money in one of the most unconventional ways, right? So I appreciate the fact that it's a capitalistic type of world we live in. So to each their own, may the best brain win, and that's how it is. There's no way around it. But Zuckerberg strangely makes a lot of money from manipulating people, right? And there's a question mark on there, really.
Okay, let me ask.
First of all, he's supposed to be giving us back some of our money for using our data without our permissions and really having our phones listened to and then advertising to us and selling us, because we're the product he sells to advertisers, right? That, look, I can get you this guy's attention. Yes, I can get you this guy's attention. And then this, because I know this guy so much, he's interested in a Nike shoe. So give me money so I can show this Nike shoe to this guy and you make a killing. So it's not unconventional, regardless of what shirts he's putting on. He's still not making it right. But do you feel like we can really cultivate a very healthy relationship with money? And if yes, how, in your perspective?
Okay, I'll ask first. If money was a friend of yours, how would you describe them? Because you have spent time dealing with money, you have experience
Yeah.
working with money.
Very emotional and stubborn. If you mistreat them, they don't give second chances from their bit of life. So yeah, they're also very delicate. You have to handle them with care. I don't think that's something good. So there'll be that friend I don't want to be with, but there'll be like a brother, and I love all my brothers. I don't want them to think otherwise because they're also really the first people that listen to this podcast. But there's that quote I frequently come across of, family are those people you don't have to love, but you end up loving, right?
Stuck with them.
Yeah, you're just stuck with them. So it's the same thing. It's like a toxic family relationship. I don't have to like my stepmother, but because then again she's married to my father, I have to like her. Yeah.
So when it comes to money, the best way to cultivate a positive attitude towards it is to think of it as a tool. Money is simply that. It is a tool. It is a not just like you would if you believed. There's some people who do not really believe in God,
Mhm.
and maybe they believe in something. I won't mention maybe an animal or but it's the value they have given that animal. It's the value they have given maybe a particular person, people who we've had the cows.
Yeah.
And because they believe in that thing, they give it so much power. They give it so much significance. So even with money, money is just a tool that was designed to help you transact. It is simply an aid to help you go through life.
Mm-hmm.
And when you view it that way, then you take away all of the fear that you feel about it and all of the resentment and just say, this is just an aid. You instruct it to help you in a particular way that you want. So it's not there to punish you, it's not there to prove anything, but just to help you navigate life. And it helps to really um, adopt some positive things about money and thoughts where you replace the myths that you have about money and really question them. When someone says there is never enough money, what brought that about? It's simply because maybe they overspent, maybe they lived up way above their means. Maybe, start to question those things that you believe about money and then think of solutions. Like what would the inverse situation, like what would it have been if you had enough money and planned for it effectively, or if you made more money, would this still be true? When you say money, what is the other thing? Money does not grow on trees.
Can money buy happiness?
Yeah.
Do you believe that? How how do you define happiness? Happiness is very fleeting. It can't be put to a price.
So my definition of money buying happiness is money enabling me to hire a staff and freeing up my time to go spend time with my kids. Money buying happiness is me being able to afford, say, an air ticket to go to a destination I wanted to visit. Money buying happiness is me walking into a grocery store and I do not have to choose the least quality pair of sausages because I cannot afford them, and instead choose what I want to buy exactly. So it's in those small decisions. Money buying happiness isn't me not thinking about the cost of one coffee, and I can afford to buy a coffee every day. And I'm happy because coffee gives me drive to go about my day energetically. So for me, yes.
Do you think you can find fulfillment outside of material gain?
Definitely. And you shouldn't get your fulfillment from material things.
But then if you believe money can buy you happiness, that means you get your fulfillment from material things.
Money buys me experiences that make me happy. Even if you prayed, okay, I'm a very big Christian, so, but even if you cannot go and pay prayer for a meal, like, do you understand? Because the earthly terms dictate that you pay for your meal.
Yeah. I hear you.
Yeah. So money is going to pay for that meal. So you're going to pray to God for provision. He's going to give you money to go pay for your meal.
Okay.
So like I said, it goes back to it just being transactional and helping us get what we desire.
It's a means to an end, right?
It is.
All right. Do you have questions for me?
Where do you see yourself 5 years from now with the podcast and all your different projects?
Nice. It's very good you asked with the podcast because I was going to tell you. Dude, 5 years from now, biggest podcast in the country. Streams will be up there. Hopefully, we'll have big partners. We're trying to talk to as many companies as possible to see how we can partner into marketing, right? The podcast way, because that's how it's working in the States. Definitely, it's the only solution to here. Also, the podcast is going to be so big in 5 years that, of course, even though already I'm almost like an opinion leader right now. I've had a few of my friends in the employment sector ask for conversations about people they want to hire. So I randomly get calls of, oh, have you hosted this chick? Can I just get their perspective? They want to do digital marketing. Have you had a conversation with them or something like that? Like, so it now comes back. So the more the numbers go up, say if we reach 1,000 episodes, that will be a thing. And also because mainstream media has, for time memorial, set the trends of discussion, right? So what then I'm doing with the podcast is to make sure, because it's big conversations by ordinary people. So what I'm doing with it is to make sure that media does not define how we think. Media, and by media in this case, it includes the state, because most the media just projects what the state wants us to know. So, but from this, I want as many people to share their experiences so that as many people can learn from those experiences, right? So it's easier for you to correct your mistake because you have so much data about how people are living and where their minds at and what experiences and challenges they've gone through. And this helps you tweak that. So yeah, in 5 years, I'll be able to achieve that.
Okay, great. I definitely want to have a podcast one day, but I'm not sure. It's not a lot of work.
It's not. Also, yeah, you come, we do the podcast. Yeah.
I do. I actually told
So,
you at a symposium that day.
Yeah, so that's the thing I was telling Victoria. The other time I was on her LinkedIn thing. So I told her, you can record these and publish them as podcasts. Then there's an extra stream in the future, but also it's readily available data for you to and your customer base to always just come back to. It just helps you strengthen it. So, but then I constantly tell her if she wants, she's just a little bit scared of the cameras, but if she wants, we can just partner, make it friendly and cost effective. Once you find partners and advertisers in the future, then we can maybe go into the actual cost of production. But in the beginning, we can see what works. So we can do it from here or from where you place of your convenience. Yeah, just see you sort logistics, then see how I come through on the production and the post editing and whatnot, and then publish. Yeah. But I'd want to do that in many fields. So I'm already doing it in the legal field. I produce the podcast for lawyers, the business side, the engineers, for marketers, hip hop. I do the SoUG podcast, legacy and music. I'm trying to give that to MTN. I do one on Mindspace, on mental health. It's called the Mindspace podcast. So I produce so many podcast varieties. Some are mine, some I co-own with other people. But that's the idea with also the studio. We are trying to give life to as many ideas of people as possible, and also setting the trend on human beings telling their own stories. Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely something I want to do this year.
Okay.
Talk about the goals.
Now I found you.
So my idea is that while we record the podcast, I also get like content for YouTube, like do one thing and then
content for IG, YouTube, and that's something. You definitely holler at me and we see how we can do it. Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for coming. It's been long. I think it's been one of the longest I've had this year. Yeah. It's been lovely. Thank you for being. You speak so well, man. I think this is why people like to listen to you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.